Ignore the messy here. I'm tired, just did a bunch of stuff, and I just want to record. I don't want to worry about the rest. So, recently I was watching a bunch of Trekkies playing a D&D game. And there's a couple of them playing Elves. And they're playing the Elves like you would play a human character. No attempt to have a personality that might be vastly different from the human characters. Just a human with pointy ears. And what do you hear today? A lot of people are criticizing new school people that come in and play Elves, as if they're humans with pointy ears instead of something more unique. So I stuck around until after they were done their session, and I asked all of them, right? If you were playing a Star Trek game, and you seen a player trying to play a Romulan like you would play a human, would you be bothered by that? Would you find that to be uninteresting as well? I mean, doesn't that a unique way of being, when it comes to Romulans, doesn't that make them interesting? And if a player was making an effort to play the Romulan as a Romulan, wouldn't that make that character altogether way more interesting than just, say, a normal human character being played? If everyone's talking the same, it's all just the same, I mean, you can just shoot the shit outside of the game, right? You don't need to get into a game and make characters just to shoot the shit with people. So, when we're role-playing, there is an expectation that you put some unique effort into what you're doing, depending on the character, of course. And when it gets to race, like at Romulans and Star Trek, well, you don't want them to be behaving like humans. That would make it odd, and it wouldn't be interesting. It wouldn't make that character interesting. Well, guess what? Elves are not like Romulans, but they're so different from humans that they're different in the way that Romulans are. And if you actually read through the Elves, I don't care what edition, even WotC explains this stuff, decently well, that they're unique. But what do you see with a lot of 5e games? Players playing an elf like it's a human. They don't seem to recognize that it is important in certain ways, and it's way more interesting to run the elf like you should, right? Well, I say you should, but in all reality, I'll be clear with you. If you're having fun or having an interesting time, if you're enjoying what you're doing, you can ignore everything I'm saying here. You're doing it right. Right? That's number one rule here. If you're enjoying your time playing these games, no matter how you play them, you are doing it right. But, we don't want to just go on cop-out on that. We want to actually explore some of these things because I think you're missing out if that's the way you view it, and you're not going to make any attempt to, say, play an elf in the unique way elves are. And I honestly think it's way more interesting, not just for you, but even the other players, where they get, maybe another player is playing a human like they normally would, and here you are behaving like, very different with the character, speaking very different. And suddenly that player needs to get to know what an elf is because you're playing an elf for what they are instead of a human with pointy ears. In old school D&D, the mechanical differences between, say, races and sexes, the entire point was to influence a player and the game master into representing those differences, because those differences bring flavor, like they would in Star Trek with the Romulans being different than humans. It brings a flavor to the story, right? To what you're watching. Well, in these games, they do the same thing. They bring flavor. And it's just as much on the player to represent that to a degree as it is the game master. And hey, new player, no matter how intimidating it seems, all you have to do is read the text about the elves. And then make your best effort to apply that. We're not looking for perfection. But here's some good news. As you make the attempt, within a few sessions of actually trying, you'll start understanding somewhat of what you're doing, and you'll start getting better at it. And then you'll start truly enjoying it as you apply that through the entire game and through developing who the character is. Let's look at all the different races that you see in Star Trek. Well, what are they bringing to the story? Well, they're bringing different elements, different aspects, ideas into the story. And then they're bringing a different view of reality. And a variety, because there's a variety of races that you're going to encounter in Star Trek. And they're there to create conflict, to clash with the human characters, right? And just to create flavor in general. Maybe even in some cases, their viewpoints bring peace. Either way, it's to bring flavor, make it interesting, make the world that, the main characters are in something for them to explore, find out mystery, be shocked, the whole 9 yards. And that's what elves, dwarves, even the monstrous races like orcs, goblins, that's what they bring. And so expressing the differences and expressing these different views of reality, they're important. Important to Star Trek and important to Dungeons and Dragons and just about any other tabletop role-playing game that has a world that is going to bring all this stuff into it. Yeah, the different races in those games are just as important as the different races in D&D or the different races, and viewpoints that you encounter in Star Trek. My argument to anyone would be this. Don't throw out some of the best parts of this game because it's going to cause you to have to make a little more effort than normal. Guess what? The tedious feeling of making that effort will go away once you create a habit, and it doesn't take long. And then you will enjoy it just like you would enjoy anything else. I get that it can be a little tedious, trying some of the things that you see in a tabletop role-playing game. And in some cases, that element, that idea is bad. But I would tell you that this is not one. Expressing the differences between like elves and humans, or dwarves and humans, or elves and dwarves is important to the overall game as it is, say, to Star Trek. Anyway, for now, take care. You know what you can do? You can hit the like button. You can share the video. Oh, and there's another button you can press. That one that lets you subscribe to my channel for more content. Oh yeah, there's that bell thing. You can press that so you know when I've uploaded a new video right away.